another higher end blade. It's made by a company called Hogue. They also make firearms grips. So what's nice about this one is, if you notice, the blade is really small. It's only a little 2-inch blade. The knife is very light. The ring here at the end is actually not part of the blade. It's part of the handle. So it's a carbon fiber, it looks like. So one of the cool things about this blade is it can go in either way. So depends on how you want to carry, but you aren't going to put it in the wrong way. This is a true carry knife. One of the really nice things about it is the way this sheath works. So you put it through your belt, but you can change how you carry it. You can rotate it so you can carry it straight up and down, or like I prefer, sideways. You pull sideways on it. It's not something you have to bust your tools out to do. Depending on the day, depending on how you want to wear it, you can quickly change how you're going to. And this is just a great overall blade for that. It's made here in the USA by Hogue. Like I said, they used to be purely a firearms replacement grips company. And they've been doing blades for a little while now, and all their stuff is great quality. This one is very thin and light, but for everyday carry, sometimes thin and light is the way you want to go, because you aren't carrying around something that's going to weigh you down all day.
I haven't even touched this knife ever, and everything he just said, I'm in love with this knife. There's 3 things that he said and I never understood why everyone doesn't do this. Why don't they all make a holster that this thing can fit in either way? I don't understand that. This is very smart. Even though it has these notches here, it's on both sides of the interior of the clip that I see. So the universal aspect of this, that you can put it back and not have to worry about it. It's got a little retainer here, and I'll try to show you, but these, where my thumb is, you can see it flexing. This retainer isn't necessarily a locking clip, but it helps push it in right here and keep it in. So it comes up over that initial part of the knife right here that sticks out, and it holds it in. But it's just enough that it pushes it away as you're pulling, so it doesn't lock it in. This thing is super lightweight. It's probably half the weight of the knife that we just felt. Not that it's a toy by any means. The ring here is not part of the blade. It's plastic. It's more part of the handle. You can see where the blade ends right there. The handle, it feels very nice. It's got a lot of texture to it. It's got a lot of curvature for your hand to fit into, no matter where you're at with it. You can even grab it wrong and it feels okay. Yeah, I like this knife a lot. This hole right here is probably just to reduce weight. It's a very, very lightweight knife. Short blade, which I like, because I think in self-defense, anytime you're using a knife anyway, it's for close combat. So I like a short blade. I don't have to poke as much or prod as much, but you could hold this either way very easily because of the way that this is shaped and how many of these divots for your fingers there are. It fits good either way. The holster, I like it. It's a strong composite poly. It looks like you run your belt through it. There's no way to clip it onto your belt. So that's, a downside for those of us that just don't wear belts all the time. And I grab a knife for my everyday carry. I usually put it in my pocket unless I have to have a sheath on it. And then I look for one that I don't have to wear a belt if I'm not wearing a belt that day. So it's not necessarily 100% every day if you're not going to wear a belt. But the knife feels like I can kick some butt with it.
It's made here in the US. They might have their own blend.
And it's Hogue, which is spelled H-O-G-U-E. And actually I have a couple of their grips. Gives you some additional grip onto your pistol. But, so it's a good company. They probably invested in a knife manufacturer because it would take so much to say, we're making grips and now we're making knives. So, and this is very high end. So you're probably looking at a machine shop somewhere, which is nice because then the warranty is great. So I would carry this knife. It's just not your everyday if you're not wearing a belt. But it's a very lightweight, very slim knife, so it's good for concealment. Last one.
So, last but not least, and surely the most expensive, is this blade made by Bark River Knife Company. It's nice. It has a good heavy weight. Interesting shape of the blade. It's made here in the US, and this is more of a collector's piece as opposed to maybe an everyday carry. A lot of people would maybe carry it every day. Personally, I wouldn't, partially because, you know, it's over $150. Also, I'm not a huge fan of the sheath. For everyday carry, it's kind of a little funky. Somebody probably loves this sheath, but it's not my thing. The stud is great. The steel on this is solid, and you know, the design's great if you're going to be using it for basic karambit, if you have any training in that. But the weight is a little different than some of these others, and it's just not my favorite blade. But this is a very popular company, and I do like how there's little grinds into it here, so it's harder if you're gripping it hard or have gloves on. It's not going to slip out of your grip.
I was watching you hold this and it looked uncomfortable almost because of how thick this handle is. They really created a monster handle. The blade is great. I love the blade and how the full tang of it runs down almost equal thickness all the way until it just tapers at the end. It feels really solid. Like, this feels like one of the ones you could pry the pallet apart with and it wouldn't break apart. I don't know what kind of metal that is. If you feel that, is that brittle or is that super strong?
I think it's pretty strong steel.
It feels like it because of the weight on it and the balance on it. It just feels like it's solid all the way through. It's got an extreme hook, almost a U shape. So you'd have to really be a trained karambit martial artist to use this as your everyday carry and have confidence, because there's no sharpness at all on, you know, 70% of the blade. So you'd have to come in at this angle here, which means right at the tip or slashing and hooking upward or around. So you have to have the confidence, because when you're in a self-defense situation, even though I'm not a knife martial artist expert, we were both martial artists and black belts, and I have to say that in the situation, what we used to train women and children for is do something that you can do with a muscle memory and training that you have commonly. Because in the middle of the situation, you have stress and anxiety, and you're not really thinking of technique. So that technique needs to come naturally and quickly. And this would be a technique only imposed by somebody who has a lot of hours of training, so that it becomes a natural movement. But the quality of this thing is insane. I like all the artistic little renderings that they've done here. The material of the handle seems like it's better than most of the micarta feel. Like, if I drop it, it won't chip or break. And it feels like I could fight with this thing, but I'd have to really be precise in my angles and movements, because I couldn't do much in the way of anything except that. So the nice thing about that extreme hook is, if you think of it like a punch, you're gonna kill somebody, because you just come straight and it is almost a punching stab. So it's really kind of interesting as you punch that you can see the angle, you can really stab with it too. So maybe you don't have to be an extreme martial artist that knows karambit, but you have to think. There's no going back, there's no stabbing like this. So you have to grab it the right way, and it doesn't feel right because of the length of the handle unless you put your finger through that thing. So it's not a super hyper stressful, intense moment type of thing. You're gonna think about what you're gonna do. And Matthew's right, I don't like this cowboy thing. I don't even know how it hooks onto your belt or whatever. It's sewn, you can't take it out and snap this. This snap and hold thing is for the knife. So it's not a situation where it's a quick release. You're gonna unsnap that thing and then pull it out. So it's kind of a cowboy thing, it's kind of a utility thing. So, which is, a karambit is not really a utility knife, it's a fighting knife, it's a fighting style. Like Eskimo or whatever it is that is also Filipino. So this is a weird confluence of how they made it and what it's for. But if you're looking for quality, I would say this is top rung quality. I just don't know what you'd use it for or how you'd use it. But as far as the size goes, you can see, here's that large one, right? And here's that nice one that we both love with the semi-straight blade, right? And then here's your little K-bar, right? Fighting knife. And you can kind of start seeing how these taper and the angle and so forth. And it seems like we've gone with a lot of hooked blades here, but as far as fixed blades go, unless you go hooked, that's a long knife. And you've got it poking in your ribs and in your leg. So you kind of have to go with a hooked blade if you're going to go with a fixed blade. So these are your choices. And if you're going to pick an everyday carry, what would you pick?
For me,
Yeah.
if I was going to carry it small of my back, I probably would carry this one,
Which is the
the tops.
Tops Cut 4.0.
And then I actually like this one for normal everyday carry otherwise. It's a good sized blade,
Which
it's
is
not
the-
too heavy. This is the K-bar made in the USA,
With the thumb release holster.
2486 with the thumb release. It's great, especially if you hook it in your jeans, you can easily release. And I would be pulling this way. I like this style. This is good too, but most of the time for me,
So you don't like
in
you
everyday,
don't like holding reverse. You like holding stab wise.
because I figure in a situation most of the time you're gonna pull and use it right away,
Right.
as opposed to I got a knife, go away.
And you feel more natural in your movements to fight like this.
Yeah,
Versus like this, which is kind of what you see the wannabe martial artists, but also most martial artists teach like this. So you still have your hand, you have your hands, and you can open up. What's nice about this Karambit thing is I do have hands. I can grab still and not lose control of my knife. So that is an interesting aspect of this Karambit thing that I thought this is kind of a deterrent for me. I have to stick my finger through it. But actually it opens up to a lot of jiu-jitsu opportunities or blocking or parrying opportunities or grabbing opportunities, and you haven't lost your knife when you do so. So it's kind of neat that way. So I kind of agree with Matthew. I think as far as everyday carry, like every day, I would pick the small K-bar. This is still my favorite. It's got the nice metal clip with the reverse barb that hooks into your pants or into your belt so it doesn't come up with the knife when you tug on it. It's got a semi-locking closure, if I can figure out which way it goes. Okay. Where it doesn't click or lock or get released, but it does click actually, but it doesn't lock. But it's also not going to fall out by any means. But it's a quick release. And it's ergonomically and small, so I don't have to worry about whatever kind of shirt I have on. You're not going to see this thing wherever I put it. But I think if I'm going to go the route of having something that I can count on for utility, for camping, for hiking, for everyday sport, and for everyday utility if I'm wearing baggier clothes versus business casual, this is the beast. But for me, business casual is slacks and a polo shirt, and I can carry this thing if I'm carrying a fixed blade. If not, then we go back to our open blades and our flip open blades, and there's a lot that you can just slide into your pocket. But for fixed blade, I like this K-bar, and I like this Tops knife. And they're all under $100. This thing's $40, $50, and this thing's how much?
about 110.
About $110. So this is a little more pricey, but it feels like you get what you pay for. It feels like you get more than what you pay for.
And that's something you can pass on to your great grandkids.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like an heirloom piece. So I would say that this piece, which wouldn't break if you use it in utility situations and you want to hand it down, like they used to do with their little open, pocket knives. This is a neat piece. Maybe you could have it personalized or something. Now that brings up another thing. These are all commercial, machined, big brand names. What do you think about the knives that people are making like on Etsy and stuff like that? How do you trust the steel?
Really, for me, especially on Etsy and some of these other sites, I look at reviews. I look at what other people have said. I go look at independent sites online to see what people have to say about them. Because a lot of the guys on Etsy are claiming they're making their blades, but really it's junk they're making it's coming from Pakistan. It's cheap Damascus steel, which means it's a mix of just a cheap auto part steel that they stamp a pattern on the outside, and they try to trick people into thinking it's good stuff. Some people use real Damascus steel here in the US, but most of the people claiming on Damascus, it's cheap junk from Pakistan. And they're saying they made it, but sometimes all they did was slap a handle on it, put an edge on it, or sometimes they didn't even do that.
So they don't really forge them most of the time, you're saying?
Yeah, most of them. Some of the guys on Etsy actually do, and I have more than a few blade makers that I really like their stuff. But like I said, it requires a little research, and maybe we'll do a video on that soon, because Etsy, there's some great stuff. You just have to make sure you don't get caught getting stuff that's junk.
Yeah, because in a situation you don't want to be out, like I say, this is I've said it too many times already, but camping, you don't want to be using it utility and then have the blade snap, break, hurt somebody, or it be non-functional anymore because you've got something that said, Damascus steel, and there's 100 grades of that, and somebody said they forge it, and you don't know. They're not commercial. They're not machining this stuff. They're not forging in mass, so they're not quality controlling the thing, and one blade comes out good and one blade doesn't come out good if you know anything about forging. And so you can use the different types of metal and then not heat treat it properly, and even though the ingredients of that metal are good, if you're not a commercial heat treating process, it can still make a crappy blade even though it's beautiful and unique and a one-off. And yeah, we'll do another one for the Etsy version of the hand forged or home forged series. And you bought a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's had good reviews and bad reviews, and we'll let you know which ones you should buy. So Etsy guys, beware, because hand forge and home forge are completely different things. Come from commercial forge, where there's quality control process and quality assurance processes, because you can have the same ingredients in your metals, and if you don't heat treat it properly, then you could have a brittle blade versus a strong blade, even if it's the same metal. So it's not necessarily the type of metal, it's the type of forging that happened and the heat treat process that happened that makes your blade good or bad. So these are all commercial. You can count on these brands, and you can count on the quality of the metal. There's different types of metal. I haven't heard you say any of these are Damascus.
No.
But why don't they make these in Damascus?
Some people do, but like I said,
Is it more expensive?
Real good Damascus steel is often an amalgam of different types of steel, sometimes layers. That way it gives it the ability to bend as opposed to break. But most of it, like I said before, is Pakistani cheap junk that they stamp something on it. It helps cover up sometimes the rustiness, but I'd say 1 in 50 blades, maybe 1 in 500 is real good Damascus steel made here in the US. I wouldn't trust anything made in Pakistan. Most of it, the Damascus steel from Pakistan is garbage.
But the guy on Etsy isn't saying his blade is from Pakistan, right?
No.
Right, he's saying he forged it, but he's using Pakistani Damascus. And even then, if he didn't heat treat it right, or if he didn't maybe he didn't even do anything. Maybe he bought the blade and put his own handle on it. So buyer beware a little bit here. So these aren't one-offs, these aren't unique. And when you're talking about an heirloom piece, maybe there's 5,000 of them made, 50,000 of them made, but at least you know what you're getting, and you can count on the quality of it. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching Weapons Grade, and look out for our next video.